A look at some of the biggest issues facing our state this holiday weekend, plus interviews with Governor Snyder, Mayor Duggan, and former Emergency Manager Kevyn Orr. Nolan and Stephen are here too, so stay put. My Week starts right now.
Recently, Michigan's economy has begun to turn around. Michigan's gained over 250,000 new jobs. We've paid off $20 billion in long-term debt. And our population is increasing for the first time in a decade. But to make Michigan a top 10 state, there's still plenty of work to be done. Step up and help put Michigan on top. Learn what you can do at MichiganTurnaroundPlan.com.
Funding is also provided by Delta.
Hi there and welcome to My Week. We are so glad that you're with us. I'm Christy McDonald. We're heading into a big holiday weekend, so we're going to take a look at some of our biggest interviews about the biggest issues facing our state. Coming up tonight, Governor Snyder and Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan talking about Detroit schools. Also, the head of the Regional Transit Authority on creating a master plan for transportation in Southeast Michigan. A look back at Detroit's bankruptcy with former Emergency Manager Kevyn Orr. A candid conversation on some of the struggles and the number one thing people ask him about Detroit. Plus, what's on Nolan and Stephen's minds? They're here too. We'll have it for you coming up. But we do start with a look at Detroit schools. The governor is expected to introduce legislation to deal with restructuring the district and debt. And there are still conflicting ideas of how schools in Detroit should be changed and run. I spoke with the governor, Mayor Mike Duggan, and two members of the Coalition for the Future of Detroit School Children about how all of these various plans come together at the Mackinac Policy Conference. What would you tell parents right now who have children in Detroit public schools or in the charter school systems in Detroit? What can they expect now in the next 6 months or when they send their children back to school in the fall?
Well, I think it's a positive message. It shows the attention being put on education in Detroit. It deserves more attention. We need to get better results in Detroit. So if you look at these efforts, both the coalition effort, what I'm talking about, and we incorporated many things they put out there, is how do we raise the bar of performance for our schools in Detroit? Right now we have more supply than we have demand. We need that equalized, but I want to raise the performance bar on all schools, whether it be a DPS school, an EAA school, or a charter school. Our kids deserve better.
As far as the governor's decision to take the old debt, which was run up under the state emergency managers, everybody acknowledges it's the state's responsibility, and put that in a separate corporation, I think that's fine. Give the schools a fresh start. But I also think people in Detroit need to be able to elect a school board, just like every other city in this state. And I think if you held a new school board election in the next year, the best and brightest of Detroit would come out and run. I think people would get excited, and we start to get kids enrolling in the Detroit public schools again, and that's the direction I'm pushing.
But you're also pushing for some kind of financial review board as well to be able to oversee what's happening with the school board?
You know, I'm not necessarily pushing it, but I'm trying to find a compromise. So the governor says, okay, if we're going to pay off this past debt, how is the state assured it's not run up again? Well, the agreement we reached coming out of bankruptcy is that I report to a financial review commission. I monthly show them we're on budget, they approve contracts, and after we balance our budget for 3 years, they go away. I think it would be reasonable to say for the new school board to have the same thing for a period of time. And so I propose that as a middle ground because I think it's absolutely essential Detroiters get a chance to elect their own school board.
You know, what do you say to parents who are watching this, kind of jockeying back and forth and trying to figure out what the exact final plan for DPS is going to be, and they're waiting to enroll their kids for the fall? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's waiting. Detroiters, I mean, it's been chaos since the emergency manager took over. We've had, of the 200 schools in Detroit, 160 have opened and closed in the last 6 years, which has just been a devastating effect on education. And so parents are making decisions between the school their child is in and the alternative schools they can afford to get to. And most charters are not offering transportation. So for the third of the families in our city that don't have a car, they pretty much don't have a choice. And so Detroiters understand full well what's going on, and I'm trying to get to a system where we provide transportation so you have a choice, we provide you information on the schools so you can make that choice, and ultimately that we have an authority that controls the opening and closing of schools to make it rational.
This has been absolutely a nightmare for parents to navigate at different points, just going from one primary system to now having multiple systems with no coordination. And so at the jump of the coalition, we were very intentional about making sure that parent voice was also an imprint in this plan. We got out in the dead of winter and we hosted a series of listening sessions where parents came in and they talked about wanting good schools. Every parent wants a good school for their kid. They talked about wanting safe schools. They wanted, additional programming, challenges around special education, challenges around transportation. How do you navigate a system and really find the right choice for your child to be able to take advantage of it if you can't get to it? And so lots of impediments came up, and parents expressing hopelessness, frustration around one day this school is open, the next day it's closed, nobody's talking to me, and shifting our kids around. And that's not okay because it puts kids in a losing position.
All right, so we have this set of ideas, and then the governor came out with what his recommendations could be. And then now we've heard from Mike Duggan about some of the recommendations that he supports. So, Tonya, how do we work this all together, and then with our lawmakers in Lansing, to make sure that there's the funding to get it all done?
Right. Well, I think the good thing is that the coalition had some recommendations, the governor, the mayor, but they're not all that far apart.
So
there are some places.
Where are some of the similarities?
One similarity that we all agree on is that we need the Detroit Education Commission, which is really an opportunity to rationalize this very eclectic and hectic school environment that Sharlonda just spoke of, where we have more than 60 different school districts and over 100 different school buildings and operators that are happening in the city of Detroit. And 14 different entities can open and close schools without any coordination. So that's a great thing. So we're all harmonizing on that issue. Now we need to get the legislators to understand why this is important, that this is not an issue or effort to stump down choice or prevent parental choice. It's actually an enabler of choice, and also an enabler of increasing high quality choice in the city of Detroit. And then I think many of us agree that we have to have a financial fix for the district. Now how we go about it is a difference, but I don't know if there is a lot of disagreement on that, right? The coalition has not come out specifically to say that we prefer the NUCO-OCO solution that the governor, but we're not opposed to it either. We think we have to have that played out. We have to see the numbers on it. And the mayor came out and said we need to support and back it. And so I think that what we now need to do is pull those disparate ends together and tie it and knit it so that we come with a clear solution about where we want to go, so that we're all rowing in the same direction.
The metro area has never had a reliable and comprehensive regional transit system, but now the state is trying to change that. The Regional Transit Authority is trying to create a master plan, and it will cost taxpayers. I spoke with Michael Ford, the CEO of the RTA here in Southeast Michigan.
For the next 3 months, we're going to be out engaging the folks to make sure that we have what their concerns are, so we can move forward and get this plan done by the end of the year.
Okay, so what do people want to see? What is the feedback that you're starting to hear?
Well, basic needs. People just want to be able to get to a job and get back home, get to a theater and see a show. Millennials want to be able to stay where they're at and have good public transportation. They want a coordinated system that works together, that integrates the different services, and they want it, efficient, effective, safe, reliable. But there are a lot of different needs out there, and we're trying to address that.
So people would say, gosh, if we have not been able to do this for so long, if it's taken us so long to get to this point, what makes you think it's going to happen now? What's changed here?
Well, as the RTA, we are tasked with actually creating a plan, coordinating the services between the different carriers, and making that happen. And also, we're going to have to invest in our future. We don't invest here. We average about $74 per capita here. If you look at other averages, it's about $184 per capita in other places. So we've got to invest. What's going to make it happen is that we have the authority, we have the ability to make it happen, and we have to make a plan that makes work, that's really sensible and makes sense for people.
Okay, and the authority was created only in 2012, and
that's
so
correct.
It's finally taken the time to gel and kind of get up to speed, so to speak, if we're talking about transit.
Right.
Speaking of speed, talk to me about the coordination of what we're going to see in terms of SMART and in terms of a rapid bus system, and where some of those lines might go.
Well, right now we're working on a couple of different things. I talked about the regional master plan, but we have Gratiot, Woodward, and Michigan. Those are lines and corridors that are being studied studied right now. Essentially, those will be potentially bus rapid transit or some configuration of that, but we're also needing to fill in the gaps. And we know that there's a lot of areas that just don't have good transportation. So we're asking people's input for that right now, and that's really going to kind of round out the plan. But I also would say it's not just about the transportation aspect, it's about wayfinding, it's shelters, it's real-time information, it's kind of all the accoutrements that make a system work well.
People will say, okay, so now we figured out what we want, now we have to figure out what it costs.
Right.
And so what is the price tag here? What will people have to start to pay? And in your role, will you have to start to ask the voters, is it in 2016 for some funding here?
Yeah, we are looking at 2016, but we have to be clear about the plan. We have to be clear what it's in it for them. Even if you don't use the system, why it's still a benefit to you. So we are in development of that plan right now. Once we have a little bit more meat on the bones, we'll be back out in September, and we want to make sure we've gotten it right. But we're going to have to invest, there's no doubt about it. People are going to have to decide if that's what they want. We talk about other systems, we talk about going other places, we can't get it right here. We can with a good plan and people's involvement and an investment.
The former emergency manager of Detroit, Kevyn Orr, is back in private practice as an attorney. In May, I had the chance to talk with him about some of the pivotal moments during the bankruptcy process, the disagreements he had, and the #1 question people have asked him about Detroit.
People have watched Detroit from overseas and nationally, and I was in Auckland, New Zealand, and Sydney, Australia a week or so ago. And how do I get in Detroit? How's it involved? How's it going? What's the story going on? The amount of attention is incredible, and it's all positive. That's the main thing. So it's really gratifying to see that in a relatively short time frame, the 5 months, 5.5 months since I left or so, there's a positive spin going out there, a lot of interest. I had a friend from college, hadn't talked to in 30 years, and it said, my daughter wants to move to Detroit and live downtown. She's packing her car. I said, well, I hope she has a place to stay because we're booked, okay, right, downtown. We're 98% leased. So it's been really gratifying and good. And the #1 question is, how do I get involved? How do I make this help some other way? So it's been very interesting but very gratifying.
Have you had a chance to really just sit back and reflect? Did you ever take notes or keep a journal? I know that sounds kind of trivial, but while you were there, in terms of being able to just sit back and take in everything that transpired in that 1.5 years?
No, I probably should have, just if not for my own recollection, just for posterity. But I think my emails would provide a pretty good indication of what was going on in any given day because I kept them and I lost track. I mean, one day I tried to count them. I stopped counting on like 300 emails. And it was just coming so quickly. So I think that's pretty good. But I think the reflection really is that we were able to do this in a way that we avoided civil strife and unrest. We were concerned about that at the beginning. And as we've seen recently in some communities, that's a valid concern. We didn't have that, so I'm very grateful to the people of Detroit. Forget the professionals and the mediators and the presiding judge and the governor who, through leadership and all, the people of Detroit in a very unstable, very volatile environment did not follow that path. And so the good news story coming out of Detroit is that, proud and resilient, there's an opportunity here and people are interested. That's really good. So if I look back on anything, I'm just very grateful that we were able to do this. And it was destabilizing, it was traumatic, but able to do this in a way that left the city and its reputation in a good position. That I'm very thankful for.
You were sitting on a panel this morning with the rest of the so-called architects, I think,
of
the bankruptcy and the revitalization. People are still fascinated with how all the moving parts worked and how it all happened. Do you have valuable relationships with the gentleman that you share the stage with?
Yeah, we do now. It was funny during the case for Darren Walker, for instance, was a profile in courage. From the Ford Foundation. He went against some of his board members and some of his community was saying, we don't do this. It's a bad precedent. What about it? He said, no, it's the right thing to do. And frankly, a repaired approach on with the Ford company and the Ford family, which he was trying to do, which I think that's just tremendous story undercurrent. Judge Rosen and I, as a mediator we'd break up from time to time, and then call each other, hey, it's not you, it's me, can't we make up, let's go out, because he was really pushing us as well, not just our creditors, to our own comfort zone, and make us think creatively about solutions. Judge Rhodes, who ran an exemplary process We caught a really lucky break by having him as a presiding judge. He kept the train running on time. He kept everybody in fighting trim. If you walked into his courtroom, you knew that you better have your case tight and precise, or he was going to let you know about it. That was he went after me a couple of times. Please answer the question, and we laugh about it now. But at the time, I was saying, like, I am trying to answer the question, but it's a stupid question. They're not answering the right thing. So, you know, and he's saying, look, you're slowing this thing up, and we're trying to move, you know. So but now we can laugh about it. And Miriam Nolan, Rip Rapson, that whole crowd who really made courageous efforts to bring us in. We're having a lot of fun together now because the stress is off. But in the midst of it all, there were times that it was very heated and very contentious for all the right reasons, because all of us were trying to do the right thing for the city and its people. We just had to muddle through the right approaches.
Do you look back now and do you say, I did the best job I could have possibly done, and I have left the city in good hands?
I use the plural pronoun. I look back and say, we did the best job that we could have done, and we have left the city in the proper hands with the mayor and city council, including those of you in the media. I mean, you guys were very vocal. You're very active. You made sure that information got out, and that's a transparency issue. People needed to know some of the things they didn't know. We had a lot of talent in our professionals. My now firm, and Miller Buckfire, Conway McKenzie, Ernst & Young, if people only knew the amount of reams of paper we had to go through just do projections to understand it. You know, it was unprecedented in its level. I lost count of the number of court filings, I think, at 5,000. Okay, just in terms of pleading. And the judge and his staff who had to read through that, the mediators, many of whom, Judge Paris, who flew back and forth from the coast, you know, this is a little personal, but her mother-in-law died in the midst of all this, and she flew back that weekend to handle a mediation while dealing with a family issue. That's the level of commitment that you saw from Victoria Roberts was dealing with the police force, going every day. They had active dockets. They were doing 2 major jobs at the same time going forward. Eugene Drinker, who was there day and night. You know, you sent an email out at 3 o'clock, someone would answer. Okay, I mean, literally not sleeping. So you had that. The governor and his staff who teed this whole thing off. You know, when Fortune said 50 greatest leaders, I said, well, Governor Snyder is the one who started it all. 2.5 years before I got here, he should be at first and forefront in terms of profile and leadership. So all of us. Chief Craig came in July 1, 2013. Dispatch system goes off night of July 3rd. We put the state in there to take over dispatch. In 8 months, he drove down crime by double digits, violent crime. Why? The same policemen, the same people on the force, because they believed in leadership. Different way of doing it. So we, all of us, combined, the mayor, the city council, everyone combined, managed to get through this in a good way, and the city's in a better place.
Fascinating conversation with Kevyn Orr. Joining me now are MiWeek contributors Nolan Finley of the Detroit News, Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press. Guys, heading into the 4th of July holiday. Woo!
Got your fireworks already?
You know what? Yeah.
What year, what anniversary is this for the country? What birthday?
Oh, isn't that awful?
Whatever year it is, it's a lot.
Wow, as you can tell, we're communications people. We are not math people, but happy birthday to the U.S.
It'll
All
be
right.
240 next year, right?
We'll put you in charge of the celebration.
Something like that.
Okay, so we are in July now, so about 6 months into the year. So let's take a look. Where are we? What's the Michigan Progress Report? Are we talking about the right things that we need to talk about? Are we focusing on the right issues? Or what's the big thing that is going to take up our conversation?
Let's talk about roads again.
No, we are not talking about roads.
That's something that's not done.
It just seems like there's been a lot of discussion this year about roads and schools and everything else, but we're nowhere near, I don't think, at mid-year solutions on any of the critical issues. That there's a bit of, I think, a feeling that we've stalled on some of our critical priorities here. Can't come to a consensus on how to move forward and what to do, you know, when we get there.
So what do you think are the critical priorities that we've stalled on?
Same one we've talked about.
Roads?
I mean, it gets to be boring, but it's roads and schools. And you say the governor's going to issue a plan. I'm not sure that plan's got much of a chance. It doesn't seem to have support.
For schools.
For schools. So,
it doesn't have much support either from Republicans, from Detroiters.
So one thing that I think could change the school calculus over the summer is what we're seeing with suburban districts now trying to put their budgets together for the next year. The legacy cost thing is not just a Detroit thing. It is driving everybody's budget a little haywire. And so you have Utica schools, for instance,
laying off teachers.
Yep.
Laying off 34 teachers, I think. And they may or may not have a population drop, but I don't think they have a population drop commensurate with that. What the problem is, there's not enough money to do all the things that school districts used to do. So
Never going to be.
that's going to put a lot of pressure on legislators to really think about this Detroit thing. If the governor can say, we're going to do this for Detroit, and then we're also going to come up with a solution to help everybody else who's
That
got
might be a little bit more palatable.
It's more
Except
sellable.
the critical question about that is, okay, so you bond all that out and put it on the state.
Yeah.
And the districts, their books are wiped clean of their debt. What stops them from going right back out and piling it up again, and who pays for that?
Well, I mean, I think that part of that deal has to be a change in the way that they deal with legacy issues.
You can no longer borrow money?
You know, there could be pay-as-you-go requirements. In other words, that you can't say we'll pay it down the road.
But for capital projects, for you know, building new schools, putting in new gymnasiums, putting in new
that's different than the legacy issues. I think you take the legacy issues away from
legacy bond debt in these districts.
It's not the bond debt that's driving the problem.
You're just talking about the pensions.
It's pensions and retiree health cares and these things that you project out, and they always end up costing you more down the road.
So the state would assume all that debt. I mean, the state already assumes the pension debt, and
have it anyway.
And the districts pay into it. Where do you get that money if you don't continue taking it out of the school aid fund?
You know, I also...
Well, that's a good question, too, right? I don't know.
And I think we have a lot of these conversations about funding for schools. And obviously, when you're spending a lot of money trying to pay down your legacy costs, and you can't spend it then in other areas. But I'd like to see us also advance the conversation in this next half of the year about what actually is happening in the classrooms. And I'm not just talking about Detroit schools and getting achievement up in there. I'm talking about statewide as well, in terms of reading levels, in terms of teacher training, in terms of, you know, they're dealing with the Common Core standards, and maybe not. There was just an article recently talking about getting the materials to be able to form their own curriculum. We have a lot of issues in the state of Michigan in terms of education. I feel that sometimes we get sucked into one area when we need to explore a little bit more of what's happening in the actual classrooms and how we're teaching our kids.
Well, we're not doing very well. For whatever reason, we're not doing very well. We're headed towards being a bottom 5 state in terms of the performance of our students. You know, we've always taken a lot of pride in Michigan here of being among the more progressive states, prosperous states. We're not anymore. I mean, we're headed towards amongst the most dysfunctional states in the country in terms of education. We're still up there in Lansing fighting about teacher evaluations, where states like Florida, Colorado, Tennessee, Massachusetts had put those in place years ago, and they're starting to pay dividends. And they didn't put them in place in a confrontational way. They worked out an agreement that everybody could live on. We're not able to do that here.
So I do want to get the new state superintendent on here, Brian Weston, get him on the show in the next couple of months. So we can talk to him a little bit about that. What else? So roads and education. I know that's enough. That's enough on the plate.
I don't know that we're any closer this summer. The House put a fantasy plan in place and went home. They're on the beach. They're playing golf. I don't see us getting a roads agreement this summer. Do you?
No. I mean, I think the Senate will release a plan that I'm hearing will not look that different from what the House did, which won't be acceptable to the governor. So they'll have to come back and do it in the fall.
We are looking at the possibility that this could be a lost year in terms of dealing with our critical issues.
That's a shame. So how does Michigan then look to the rest of the country? How are we kind of shaping up these days?
I mean, I think if you're a business, if you're a family looking, you know, to move somewhere or for opportunity, I don't think we rank that high. I think there are so many problems with the way we do things here, and they are you know, they're not attractors to investment, either private investment in a business sense or in a family sense. I mean, people want government to do the job it's supposed to do. They want it to work and function. And I think we're in a place where it doesn't function very well at all.
When you talk about what do others think about it, how do they see us? I mean, there are bright spots, and who would have ever thought that Detroit would have been one of them? But Detroit's attracting a lot of investment from beyond this region. A lot of out-of-state, a lot of international investors taking a look at Detroit. It's the first time that's happened. You look at Grand Rapids and what's happening over there. That's a functioning city. That is a very attractive city for young people, for families. It's really become the jewel of Michigan, and we don't talk about it a whole lot, but those are things that Michigan could build on.
Those are bright spots, but I mean, overall,
10 seconds
the
left.
condition of our roads, I mean, if
you
were
can't
opening
get to
a road,
Grand Rapids, right?
You can't get to Grand Rapids. All right. Well, we'll see. We'll keep tracking it, and that is going to do it for My Week. We're so glad that you've joined us. Have a wonderful 4th of July with your family and your friends, and make sure you find us on Facebook and Twitter, of course, MiWeek.org. Thanks to our crew here at Detroit Public Television, and for all of us, I'm Christy McDonald. Have a great night, and we will see you next time for My Week. Take care.
Recently, Michigan's economy has begun to turn around. Michigan's gained over 250,000 new jobs. We've paid off $20 billion in long-term debt. And our population is increasing for the first time in a decade. But to make Michigan a top 10 state, there's still plenty of work to be done. Step up and help put Michigan on top. Learn what you can do at MichiganTurnaroundPlan.com.
Funding is also provided by Delta,